Rajak Acharya, Ashtottara Shishya Maharaj Divine Grace, A.C. Bhakti Vedanta Shani Maharaj Prabhupada Jai. Ananta Koti Vaishnavrinda Ki Jai. ISKCON founder Acharya Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur Ki Jai. Prem se kaho Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasani Gaura Bhaktivinoda Ki Jai. Shri Shri Radha Krishna Gopa Gopinath Shyam Kund Radha Kund Giri Govardhan Ki Jai. Vrindavan Dham Ki Jai. Navadvip Mayapur Dham Ki Jai. Ganga Devi, Jamuna Devi, Tulsi Devi, Bhakti Devi Ki Jai. Shri Harinam Sankirtan Ki Jai. Shamaveta Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai. Gaur Premanande. All glories to the assembled devotees.
Hare Krishna.
All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glory to Sri Sri Guru and Sri Gauranga. First verses. 3rd chapter, 29th verse. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
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 We're discussing the Srimad Bhagavatam, and we've already gone through chapter 1, 2, and half of chapter 3. So we're finishing off this series with the last part, several verses from chapter 3. So those who've been following, please pay attention because there will be questions at the end. You might get them wrong or right. Those who are actually enrolled in the course, passing grade is what?
80%.
80%, thank you. We've graded some papers, mostly people are passing, but there's some, anyway, so this is your chance. We're going to start by this verse. Is it there? Or you didn't get it up there?
Internet's not working. So
Okay,
I'll get it up.
All right. It's the 29th verse of the 3rd chapter. It goes like this. Janma Guyam Bhagavato
Janmabhuyam Bhagavato
Yaita Prayato Nara
Eta Prayato Nara
Sayam Prata Grinan Bhaktya
Sayam Prata Bhakta
Dukkha Grama Vimuchyate
Dukkha Vimujyate
Janma Guyam Bhagavato
Janmabhuyam Bhagavato
Yaita Prayato Nara
Eta Prayato Nara
Sayam Prata Grinan Bhaktya
Sayam Prata Bhakta
Dukkha Vimuchyate.
Dukkha Vimuchyate.
Oh, yeah, we got it.
29. Yeah.
Very good. Thank you. Just your time. So the English there, the English translation, we did the Sanskrit already. Let's get the English. Yeah. So you repeat, whoever, come on, carefully recites these mysterious appearances of the Lord with devotion in the morning and evening, gets relief from all miseries of life. Kind of nifty, huh? If if you like to get relief from all miseries of life, what is suggested here?
Recite the sweetest appearances.
What appearances are they talking about here? Huh? Which lords? Which appearances?
Krishna.
Yeah, which ones though? I mean, there's lots of them, right? Any idea? Any idea which ones we're talking about?
Yes.
Is it Rama? Is it Vishnugada? Which is?
Krishna.
The original.
Just Krishna, no, nobody else.
Appearances.
I'm asking. Huh? Yes.
It's a plural, so it must be Ram, Krishna.
A bunch of them together, you say? Okay. Good guess. Yeah. Any other ideas?
Vasudeva.
Vasudeva, you're saying. What's the title of this chapter? Krishna is the source of all incarnations, right? And so what was the first part of the chapter about? I'm just checking. What was it about, the first part of the chapter? Please.
He is an incarnation.
No.
The different incarnations.
Yeah. The first part of the chapter was a list of all the incarnations and the activities. So that's what's being referred to here. If you chant or recite these activities and appearances of the Lord, Sayam Prata. What does that mean?
Morning and evening.
Yeah, morning, evening.
Sayam
Sayam Prata. But there's a special qualification you got to do. It says Grinan means you recite it, and then some other thing is Bhaktya. Bhaktya means with devotion. Dukkha grama vimuchyate. Yeah. Freedom from all. You know what dukh is?
Yes.
What is dukh? Miseries. Vimuchyate means what?
Getting relief from it.
So how do you get? What is being suggested here is a method to get free from all miseries of life. What is being recommended?
You recite the
Recite the mysterious appearances and
in the
activities
morning
of
and
the Lord.
evening.
Yeah. In the morning and evening. And what appearances and activities are there?
all the incarnations.
The ones that are mentioned previously. Okay. So this is called a Krishna conscious sandwich. Or sometimes people say sandwich. Sandwich. What does that mean? Well, in the morning, hearing and chanting about Krishna. In the evening, hearing and chanting about Krishna, you know. And in the middle, what's in the middle?
You can do your activity.
Devotional service. Your service to Krishna. So someone they may be cooking for Krishna, or being an architect for Krishna, or going on Harinam Sankirtan, or making flower garlands, or whatever. The idea is that all parts of the day being arranged so that you think of Krishna. So the beginning and the end is your beginning is the bread, end is the bread, right? And in the middle is the actual some other service. Yeah. So that's called, what is that?
Krishna sandwich.
Sandwich. Yeah. The Prabhupada called it that. I didn't make it up. The Krishna's conscious sandwich. And so this is recommended here. Morning and evening, hearing about the transcendental pastimes of the Lord. This is something people often, and you know, you can do this one, but there's other ways you can also recite. Some people in the morning and evening, they recite a prayer stotram called Dashavata Stotram. Have you heard of that?
Yes.
Pralaya Payodi Jare Dikavana Shiveram. They're also about the appearances, activities of the Lord. Yeah. So I'm going to quote something that Chanakya Pandit said. Wise people spend their mornings discussing gambling. Wait a minute, I thought that gambling was one of the four regular principles that we're supposed to avoid, right? Okay, we'll see. The afternoon discussing the activities of women, and the night hearing about the activities of theft. What is that about? Any idea? Wise men spend their mornings discussing what? Gambling. Noontime, women, and evening what? Theft. What is that? What is Chanakya saying? Any ideas? Come on. Put your thinking caps on. Yes, you know?
Maybe he's sarcastically.
Oh, you're thinking it sarcastically. Yes, sir.
Mahabharata, Ramayana and Bhagavatam.
Yeah. So, gambling, who had the dice match? Yudhishthira Pandavas, right. So that's in the morning, the activities of women, that was the kidnapping of Sita, right? So the whole business of Lord Ramchandra was to rescue his wife Sita. Yeah. And in the evening, theft. What's that about? Theft. Talk about stealing.
Krishna stealing butter.
Makancho. Yeah, so this is the same kind of idea, right? This is Chanakya. You know, and Srila Prabhu would also talk about when he was a young boy, every evening, you know, they'd go and they'd hear discussions of Mahabharata and the Ramayana. Everything. So this is something that's a standard practice in devotional service. People are attracted to hear about activities of other people anyway, isn't it? Mostly people are, they follow, is it called clickbait? Is that what it's called? You've never heard that word? I thought everybody did. Clickbait, you know. Some celebrity, something happened with a celebrity, you know, and so they want to find out, oh, what happened? They had a fight with this one. So you clicked on that and you want to find out what happened. You don't do that? They don't comment? I'm ahead of the game here. Okay. So, but whether it's a movie star, you want to hear about their activities, or a sports figure, or a politician, right? You want to find out the latest, what's going on with that, because it's quite interesting. The problem with that is that we find out we'd like those celebrities, those sports heroes, and politicians to be kind of special, important, and wonderful people. But then we find out that, like, you know, they got arrested for a DUI, right? Or, you know, there was some domestic violence that happened, and it's very interesting that we tend to mistake the temporary for the real. We want to hear about activities, we want to hear about wonderful adventures that excite us and have some kind of nuances, but we're taking these kind of temporary, transient activities as being real substance. There was a funny experience that some people had in India, that when they first started making movies in India, how long back was that? Was that in Mumbai? Yeah. They made a Ramayana, right? And there was a particular actress who played Sita. And of course, in India, people are very religious, and they were glued to the movie screen and wanting to see this. And then, you know what happened? You probably know. You know what happened. So that same actress who was, you know, played Sita, in the next movie she was cast for, she played a kind of a loose woman. You didn't know this? And so people would go to this movie and they were crying. Sita's now become a loose woman. True story. Because we take the temporary to be real, right? So this is the subject matter. There's fiction and there's non-fiction, right? Some people like to read fiction. It titillates the brain. It seems exciting. But some other people object to fiction because there's no real. It's not real. Right? It's not real. But even the non-fiction that you read, its influence is temporary. These activities of the Supreme Lord are eternal. They're eternal means they not only exist here, but they're eternally existing in the spiritual world And they exist from universe to universe, just as the sun rises, is always rising in some place on the earth. Similarly, these activities of the Lord, they're occurring someplace within the myriad universes, within the cosmic manifestation. And there's another thing. When you read a fiction book, someone else has to come up with another fiction book, that becomes a bestseller later. Because your interest wanes after some time. The quality of the activities of the Supreme Personality of Godhead are that if you pay attention and truly try to understand, you get newer and newer insights, fresher and fresher understanding and meanings. They don't become stale or old. Another thing is that because these are the activities of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, they're as good as God. Because God is absolute, which means that everything that's associated with Him has His potency. For example, anybody give some examples?
His name.
His name, very good. You were ready for that one. Yeah. The name of Krishna. Nama Chintamani Krishna's Chaitanya Rasa Vigraha Purno Shuddho Nityamukto Vinatvam Nama Namino. This is a nice verse. It's Purno means it's as full, Shuddha is as pure, and Nityamukto means completely liberation, as Krishna himself. So the nature of Krishna means that everything that's associated with him directly has his potency. And that includes his pastimes. Yeah. So, here we're talking about Sayam Prata, morning and evening. There's this Krishna conscious sandwich, and this is called devotional practice. Some people do any doctors here? Or dentists? They have a practice, right? They do their medical practice. And you hope they're not practicing on you. Right? Hopefully they're already gotten good. Isn't it? Right? Because you hope that practice makes perfect. Right? So devotional activities are also done, we call it yoga practice, and this is bhakti yoga practice, which means regularly doing something. Why? What's the goal of the practice? Yes. Always thinking of Krishna and never forgetting it. Yeah. Which is, yeah. So it's something like in India, there's sometimes you see, and not so much in the cities anymore, but in the villages, you see the ladies with a pot, carrying the water pot on their head. Have you ever tried to do that? Do you know how to do that? The guys, can the guys do that? I doubt any guys can do it. But you put the, and you somehow, they can even do it without holding it, right? Sometimes they can do it. So how's that done? How can they do that?
Super practice.
Huh? By practice, yeah, by practice. Or you see a juggler, and you've seen those jugglers that they twirl a plate, they put it on the end of a stick, and then they twirl another one, they have like 5 or 6 plates. Have you seen those, like, jugglers do it? I can't do it. They can do it. How do they do it? That's right. So, Sayam Prata means Srimad Bhagavatam is recommending that we make this part of our practice every morning and every evening to hear the transcendental activities of the Lord. Okay. So that's the first verse we talked about today. All right. Next, this is the last part of the third chapter of Srimad Bhagavatam. Okay. The next part of this chapter talks about Virat Purusha. Have you heard of Virat Purusha? The Virat Purusha is mentioned in various parts. Many of you are familiar. It's also called Vishvarupa.
Yes.
Virat Rupa. Yeah. 11th chapter of Srimad Bhagavatam. In English, you call it the universal form. Thank you. Yeah, the universal form. So, in this list of incarnations that were mentioned already, you didn't find the universal form. Right? We're talking about all these incarnations. What about the universal form? How come it's not in there? Well, actually, it's coming later. But, yeah, let's see what the translation is. It says here, the conception of the Virat universal form of the Lord as appearing in the material world is imaginary. Oh! So those activities that we were talking about of the Supreme Lord before, those were his eternal leelas. They, just like we, as living beings, we're souls. We're eternal. We never die. But we're covered with a subtle body of mind, intelligence, and ego. And what else? Chaitanya? No. A physical body also. A physical body. Material. Okay, so the subtle, so those things are covering the soul. Actually, asango hyayam purusha. The soul has nothing to do with matter. But in a conditioned state, we're functioning under the idea that we are this body. God's form has nothing to do with this material world. He is completely spiritual. You know that verse from Brahma Samhita. What is it? Ishvara Param Krishna Satchit Ananda Vigraha. His body, the Ishvara, the Supreme Param, the Paramishvara, the Supreme Controller, who's that? Krishna. Satchit Ananda Vigraha. His form, his body, is eternal, blissful, and full of knowledge. Right? So our bodies and his body are different. He has this eternal, blissful form. Anganiyasya sakalendriya vittimanti. His senses are interchangeable. So he can eat with his nose or eyes. You want me to say, yeah. In the conditioned state of the soul, we can't do that. Actually, it's very funny because some people can read with their fingers, right? But it's a little bit, but not quite fully interchangeable. But Krishna is completely interchangeable. So his form is completely spiritual, and the soul's form is spiritual, but in material consciousness, we're mistaking it. So what is this universal form? What is that? It's like the gigantic material body of the Lord. You know what they say about the Virat Roop or Virat? It's the clouds are what? The clouds are of the universal form. The hair on his head. You didn't know that? The moon and the sun are. Got that one. Good. The ocean is his belly. Very good, very good. And the mountains are
legs.
The mountains are the stacks of his bones, right? The stacks of his bones. And the trees are
Actually, the hair.
Hair on the head, right? Like you have some hair on the body. Hair on the body. Yeah. So like that. So this is why is that? It says it's to adjust to, so for neophytes to understand that the Lord has form, because it's difficult for people to understand God has a form that's spiritual. So they start out by telling them, oh, this universal form is God. But actually, Krishna is completely transcendental to this material world. His form is completely spiritual. So that's why this is an explanation about why the Virat Rupa is not part of this list. You follow? Okay. Okay, next. Next after that. That's what I have. Okay. Next. Yeah. So, just the English. Thus, learned men describe the births and activities of the unborn, which we just went through, right? Janma? Yeah. Learned men describe the births and activities of the unborn. This sounds like a contradiction, right? Learned men, smart guys, they describe the birth and activities of the Lord who is unborn and inactive. How can you have somebody who's unborn be born? How can you have somebody who's inactive be active? It's a mystery, right? This is also there in the Ishopanishad. The Lord walks and He does not walk. He's near and He's far away as well. How can you say He walks and He doesn't walk? He's near and He's far away as well. What's the answer to this? The answer is, what's that? What? Yes, He's everywhere. But His birth, when you say a person doesn't have birth and then is born, most of the time when you speak about births, you're talking about births that we experience within this material world, right? An individual soul is forced to go into a particular womb of a particular mother, stay in there for quite a while, suffer in so many ways, and then come out and cry and all kinds of stuff. That's how births usually take place. Forced. How are they forced? By laws of previous activities in the family. So that's regular birth. When Krishna takes birth, what law of karma is putting him there? Are you sure of that? He takes birth by his own will. He's not forced in a particular womb. Usually, most incarnations are expansions of Chiradakshai Vishnu. Krishna's not. And ekopya soda chaitam jagadanda koti yachchaktirasti jagadanda chayayaranta. Krishna is within every atom and between every atom. And just like when you take a piece of wood and you light a fire to it, light a match to it, what happens? Fire. It's already there, right? But it comes out. So Krishna is already present everywhere. And by His will, at any time He can come out. And that looks to us like birth. It may look to us like birth, because it appears like from Devaki. But it's not, it shouldn't be mistaken as birth like us. Some other symptoms or evidence that Krishna's birth is different than our birth. When you're born, when a baby boy or girl is born, we have some young kids here today. So what's on their head? What's on their head? What's some crummy little hair? You notice? Yeah. Did you ever notice that? Then that usually falls off and then it takes a while to grow some more hair. Right? So when Krishna was born, what did they find? What was growing on his head? Any idea? Any idea? Any good guesses? Come on.
Full of hair?
Huh?
It's real.
You'd say he had a full head of hair. Not only that, he had hair, but the hair was covered.
He had a crown.
He had a crown. Yeah. Crown. Now, what kind of regular kid gets born with a crown on their head? Can you imagine this? I mean, this is just showing. And then, right after birth, I mean, he appeared, but he didn't appear like a little kind of cherub. He didn't appear fully as four-armed Vishnu. Oh! I mean, sometimes special things happen, like Shukadeva Goswami stayed in the room for a long time, and then came like reviews. But this was like fully grown. And then, you know what else? He started to talk. Talking about his other, who was his mother and father, his previous birth and all this. So this is like, right from the very beginning, he was fully conscious. We're usually ordinary people when we're born. The babies look very cute, but they're not very good scholars at that point, right? So this is a different kind of birth. So when we say birth, unborn, it means what? No material birth. And when you say Well, hey, how can you say God is inactive? There's so many things that Krishna, Lord Chaitanya, these avatars did. How can you say they're inactive? Same thing. It means they didn't have any material activity. Material activity means it generates karma. There's an action and reaction from the moment. Who's in charge of that? Who's forcing that karma? Sattva gun, rajogun, tamagun. The three modes of nature are arranging for the karma. Material energy are forcing, lust, greed. These things are forcing a person to act in a particular way, and after a while they get their results of that karma. But Lord Krishna, as we said from the first shloka in Srimad Bhagavatam, remember the word that I asked you the definition of that. Swara. Swara means he's not under the control of Rajogun, Tamogun, Sattvagun even. Not in control by being pushed to do anything by lust or greed or by any demigod. He's fully independent, and so he's acting free from all those constraints. So in that sense, inactive means he has no material activity. It's transcendental activity, spiritual activity. So this is pretty good stuff. Okay. So since these activities, even his birth and his activities, even though he's unborn and inactive, are transcendental. When you come in contact with them, your consciousness and your mind becomes spiritualized, surcharged. It will be surcharged with spiritual consciousness. Just like if you take an iron rod, which is iron, right? And you put it in a fire, like blacksmiths do. Maybe you see blacksmiths in Gujarat or something? Put the iron in the fire, and then after a while, especially the fire, they blow on the fire. It gets red hot. So that red hot iron, if you touch anything, what happens? Have you seen? If you touch something, what happens? It burns. If you touch it to some leaves, it'll immediately jump to fire. So same thing with the transcendental activities of the Lord. It's powerful, just like fire. Okay. Then we're going to go to 1.3.35. Oh, wait, sorry. Sorry, then. Let's go for a while. If you continue to put it back.
I can just go to the
Further. There, 40. 140. This is a very good verse. We'll recite this verse. Idam Bhagavatam Nama.
Idam Bhagavatam Nama.
Puranam Brahma Samhitam.
Puranam Brahma Samhitam.
Uttama Shloka Charitam.
Uttama Shloka Charitam.
Chakara Bhagavan Rishi.
Chakara Bhagavan Rishi.
Nishreyashaya Lokasya.
Nishreyashaya Lokasya.
Dhanyam Swasti Ayanam Mahat.
Dhanyam Swasti Ayanam Mahat.
Very nice sloka, very nice sloka. Idam, this. Bhagavatam Nama means this work, Srimad Bhagavatam. Puranam, of the Puranas, Purana means of the Puranas, Brahma Samhitam. It's the incarnation of God in the Puranas. So just like Krishna appears in, mammalian species, like as a horse or as a fish, right? All different species Krishna appears. Krishna also appears in Puranas, in histories. And this Bhagavad Purana is Krishna's incarnation in literature. Very interesting. Puranam Brahma. Uttama Shloka Charita means, how is that? Uttama Shloka means Krishna, who is glorified in wonderful prayers. Charitam, it's the activities of that person who's glorified in wonderful prayers. Uttama Shloka Charitam. Yeah. Chakara Bhagavan Rishi. And because it's compiled by Bhagavan Rishi means Vyasadeva, who's the incarnation of God himself. So this is very nice. Idam Bhagavatam Na Puranam Brahma Samhitam Uttama Shloka Charitam Chakara Bhagavan Rishi Nishreyashaya Lokasya. Shreyas, there's Shreyas and there's prayas. Prayas means short-term good. And shreyas means lasting benefit. It's meant for the lasting benefit. Lokasya. Lokasya means the whole world. The whole world. Nishreyasaya lokasya. Danyam swasti. We were just having this ceremony. And if you heard, there was swasti, swasti, swasti. You hear that? Swasti, swasti, swasti. What does that mean? Very auspicious. Yeah, very auspicious, full, auspicious, complete. And Mahat means greatest. Greatest thing. So this is glorification of the Srimad Bhagavatam. Now, the first 25 shlokas were about what? Of this chapter?
The incarnation.
The incarnations of the Lord, right? And then there's a few verses here where it talks about the universal form of the Lord. It's being a form, but it's not really an incarnation. And then right after that, here we're naturally, here's another incarnation, right? This is the chapter about incarnations. Well, here's an incarnation. What's that incarnation? Srimad Bhagavatam. Srimad Bhagavatam. Okay. That makes sense, right? Yeah, we've got the chapter of incarnations. Krishna is this. So here is this is the literary book incarnation of Krishna. Okay. So then, after this, this is really interesting. So just like if you want to know about somebody, you like to know all about them. You want to know about their public activities and their private activities. You want to know, well, where were you born? Yeah? How did you grow up? Right? It's natural. That's all part of a person, right? And what's their background? What's their work? Yeah? Who is their father? Who is their mother? All that stuff you want to know because that's how you get to know somebody. So in a similar way, in the Srimad Bhagavatam, if you say this is an incarnation of Krishna, you want to know, well, where did all this stuff come from? Right? Isn't it? You want to know where it came from. So in the beginning, the first chapter, we had the sages at Naimisharanya asking questions, right? And so that's kind of where the Srimad Bhagavatam seems to start. But actually, that's not where it started at all. It didn't start there. So now we're coming back to, let's see, well, who's your mother, who's your father's name, right? I come from Indiana. And in Indiana, you know what the Indiana people are called? Who knows? American people know this. Hoosiers. Have you ever heard that before? Hoosiers? Hoosiers. And where does that word come from? Well, the story goes that back, like in the early 1800s when Indiana was just being settled as a state, a territory or something, a lot of people moved up from North Carolina, and a lot of other people moved up from Tennessee. Right? So there's two groups of people came up and they kind of intermingled. And two different groups, right? So when they met each other, they would always say, "Who's your mama? Who's your pa?" They got Hoosiers. True story. So here we want to understand, where is the Srimad Bhagavatam coming from, right? So you might think it's coming from these sages of Naimisharanya and Sutta Goswami, but no, actually. Okay, Chakara Bhagavan Rishi. Then the next thing as well. But where did Vyasadeva? How did he talk about it? Well, he gave it to his son, Shukadeva Goswami. We haven't heard about Shukadeva Goswami, just a little bit we heard about. We haven't heard about Shukadeva Goswami. So now we're going to get into this. This is the lineage of how the Srimad Bhagavatam came about, just like you want to understand how a person, what their background is, right? So we're going to hear that Vyasadeva spoke it to his son, Shukadeva. Now, this is a very interesting point. Vyasadeva had more than one son. But anyway, Shuka was his favorite son. And for a new dad, when they have a son, usually they're very partial to the son, isn't it? Sometimes they can be partial to daughters too. But oftentimes they have their pet son, right? Especially the first son is their pet son. So then, what do they want to give to their pet son? The best, right? They have to give the best to the pet son. So of course, Vyasadeva, the father, is going to give the best thing to his son, Shukadeva, right? Shukadeva. And what really happened is, he didn't even wait until Shukadeva was born yet. He spoke it to Shukadeva while he was still in the womb. And then Shukadeva came out, and we'll read about this later, but this is background. So then he came out and then went traveling in the forest and then met on the bank of the Ganges Parikshit Maharaj. So we're coming to that point. We're coming to that point where it's going to be, this part says, well, he spoke this to Parikshit Maharaj, who was sitting on the bank of the Ganges. Right. So then we're coming to the end of this chapter. Then, the next chapter after this, guess what we talk about in the next chapter? How did Vyasadeva come about to speak the Srimad Bhagavatam and understand? That's the next chapter. The whole thing, how he got into it. So we're going back and back and back and back. The whole picture. Okay. So then the last point I'm going to make today. Thank you for staying with me so far. The last point I'm making today is one of the questions, the last questions that the sages asked of Suta Goswami was, now that Krishna has left, this is the second to last verse. Now that Krishna has left, this was after Krishna left the planet. So Kali Yuga, Kalimagatamagyaya. Kali Yuga had begun. Where have religious principles taken shelter? Where can you find religious principles? Where can you take shelter of, religious principles? So then you go down like that. So this is answering these questions by the sages, right? And the rest of Srimad Bhagavatam is an elaboration of these answers by Suta Goswami, which he's repeating what Shukadeva Goswami said. Okay. Krishna svadhamo bhagate. Now that Krishna has gone to his own dham, dham means his own abode. Now that Krishna's gone, Krishna dhamo bhagate, svadhamo bhagate. Dharma jnanari bisaha. And he's accompanied by dharma and jnana, knowledge, etc. Kalo nashta dushamesha. In this Kali Yuga that we're experiencing, nashta means darkness. Lost. Yeah. We've lost our vision. Nashta dusha, lost our vision, esha. Purana kodinodu. Arka means what? It's the sun. It's brilliant like the sun. Now think about this. Think about this very carefully. The sun is actually a miracle. If you were going to think about something like, here we are sitting in Philadelphia, and if something happened in Siberia, right, and it had some influence on us, just in a short time, that'd be amazing, right? Something happened like a few thousand miles away, right, and it had some effect on us here. Like sometimes there's a volcanic eruption, right, and the clouds come over, and the dust clouds come over. That's just a few thousand miles. Right? The sun, it's how many miles?
93 million.
They say 93 million miles, right? But it's having influence on you every single moment of every single day. That's amazing. That's a miracle. And the Srimad Bhagavatam can act just like that sun in the core of your heart by cleansing all the dirty things from the core of your heart, just like the sun. So this is the final answer to that question. Okay. That's the end of the third chapter of first volume, Srimad Bhagavatam. I'm going to read the questions that I have for you, because I have 1-2 minutes. And then if you have, I'm not going to answer the questions yes if you want me to, but I'm going to read the questions that I have. And then somebody sends them, who sends them out? Usually you send them out. Okay, question 1. If you want to write them down, you can. Some people probably could guess what the first question is, because I made a big deal about it. What is a Krishna conscious sandwich? You got it? Okay, got it. One. Next. Explain how the universal form of the Lord, Virat Rupa, is different from other incarnations. You follow?
Yeah.
Okay. That's questions. I only have 6 questions. Last time I did it. True or false? This is easy one. One can derive all the benefits of personal contact with the Lord through careful study of Srimad Bhagavatam.
Yes.
Okay. 7 minutes. Number 4. Oh, I didn't even talk about this one, so you have to research this in the book itself. It's there in one of the purports. Explain the difference between favorable and unfavorable service to Lord Krishna. Explain the difference between favorable and unfavorable service to Lord Krishna. 5. Explain why it is said that the Lord is unborn and inactive. I will go over that one. See that. And then last one, this is really one for the whole 3 chapters together. And we'll see what you think. Describe what kind of religion Srimad Bhagavatam recommends that people take up. Follow? What was that? Yeah, I'll say it again. Describe what type of religion Srimad Bhagavatam recommends people take up. Hare Krishna. Thank you very much. No question. Thank you. Hare Krishna.
Yes.
What's that?
You asked the question.
Yeah, I did.